Uh, Jeffrey, good to have you again on the third and final edition of this series where we are talking about autonomous penetration testing. So today, what we plan to discuss is what steps should an organization take to design a robust implementation of autonomous penetration testing. Jeff, I would invite you to share your experience, what you see right now in your part of the world as to how people are approaching to convert from manual testing to autonomous testing. Jeff?
Thank you, Sujit. So I want to give all the viewers a flavor of how to visualize an autonomous pen testing implementation, right? So let's say you sign up with an autonomous pen testing provider, and they would most probably have a SaaS hosted version of their platform, and you would have to identify within your environment. Firstly, what are the crown jewels that you have, right? The most important digital assets that add value to your bottom line in your business. And you need to have a proper asset register that classifies all your assets, right? So you go and look at where all your key assets are residing within your environment, right? So if you take the traditional implementation of security within an organization, you would have your perimeter devices, then you have your DMZ or demilitarized zone, which contains all your internet facing assets. And then within your internal segment, you would have the regular local area networks where people sit and work on their desktops or laptops. You have all your printers and IoT devices and so on. And then you would also have your data center segment, where within the data center segment, you would have all your internal systems residing in it, right? So from an attacker perspective, you have to visualize, okay, what are the various ways a person can get in? One would be physical access, right? Let's say they walk into your office, they plug into one of your LAN endpoints, right? And they run like a hacking device, or let's say they plug in their own laptop and they start scanning your environment. So that is one avenue in which an attacker can get in. The other would be, let's say they pose as a vendor, right? And they get into your data center and they try to do the same thing, right? So that would be another avenue. Then one more avenue would be where one of your employees clicks on a phishing link, and as a result, because of bad segmentation within your network, the person is able to elevate their access by moving laterally within your network environment, right? And thereby, they move from an innocent local area network segment into the data center, right? Where they can do a lot of terrible things, right? So that privilege escalation, as we call it, can happen using these three methods. These are the three key attack vectors. Obviously, there are multiple others as well, but obviously you have to use the Pareto principle, right? Where is the majority of attacks happening? First, you secure that, the 80%, and then you go for the 20%. So let's look at these 80% vectors, right? So one, you have the user segment, which is the LAN, right? In that LAN, what you would do is you would implement like a virtual machine or a physical host, right? Where you can implement the system provided by the automated pen test provider, and that would connect back to the cloud instance of the platform, right? So thereby, you just have to whitelist a certain port and an IP address of the cloud platform that goes into the pentest vendor's SaaS instance, and there would be no restriction on the number of endpoints that you can install, right? So you can put one in your user segment, you can have one in your data center segment, Then you can have one in your demilitarized zone, and multiple, even if you have multiple locations, you have one in North America, or multiple offices in North America, in Europe and India. So you can have like different hosts implemented in different geographies, and they would all connect in to this cloud instance. So first you establish connectivity for your pen test platform. The next, you have to design like how are you going to do the tests, right? From what perspective? Are you going to test it from how many vulnerabilities can I find, or is it from a zero trust testing perspective, right? So the zero trust testing perspective will help you identify if your firewall rules are working properly, and like can a person from one country get into another country? Can a person get from a regular virtual LAN into maybe the HR virtual LAN or the finance virtual LAN, right? So these kind of tests you can program into your pen testing schedule, right? You can first, what we do, we have to write down all the use cases, like all the segments, from which segment to which segment you would like to go to, and so on, and what should be the success criteria, right? Should it allow or should it deny? And you write down all these use cases, and based on that you can create like multiple scan profiles in the automated pen test platform. And in all those scan profiles, obviously it gives you access to a lot of tests, right? And you can do look for specific plugins that are related to the technologies that you use. Then you can also look for compromise of passwords. Let's say there is a favorite password scheme that your company uses, right? For each company, that will be like a particular favorite, right? Either based on location or based on the name of the company, you add a bit of 1, 2, 3s or something to it. So those favorites, that will be like a dictionary of them. You can feed in the dictionary to the tool, and it will put in different permutation combination during the password hacking exercises. And it'll also do some open source intelligence and look for social media platforms as well, to see if it can do a combination of these to get into your account. Then you have all these profiles programmed, and you can test from the DMZ. Can you get to the DMZ from a regular segment? Can you get to DC and so on? That is the zero trust part. Next, we come to the cybersecurity vulnerability detection part. So in this, you would see how many findings is the platform generating, right? Let's say you're running the scan from a data center segment. Obviously, it has higher visibility, right? It can scan all the resources freely, and you will get a lot of findings, right? And all those findings, it'll rank based on severity, and it'll tell you exactly how to fix it as well. It'll show you the map as to how it got to the system. Like, for example, there'll be a basic Java vulnerability, right? A low risk vulnerability. It will get past that, and then it will dump your SAM file on your system. It will run like a mimikatz to take a go at all the passwords, and then it will elevate itself to a domain admin, right? So what seemed like a low risk vulnerability got converted into a very high risk attack, right? So that kind of findings you'll get from a data center segment. Then you have the user segment where you're trying to simulate a person walking into your office. It will tell you, okay, what level of findings you're getting as well. So if you implement it from an attack profile perspective, this is how you do it. From an actual installation of all these systems, there is a concept called as a runner, right? Traditionally, as a pen tester, you would log into your console and you'll run a command to launch the attack, right? So you can also do that in the automated platform, but if you want to make it even more seamless to your team, you can implement this runner concept. The runner will implement an automated way of doing that command. You just have to go click and start the test, right? So you implement this runner at each of these zones, and that in turn will help you to start the test. So if you draw a network diagram, you can visualize yourself putting these runners in various countries, in various offices, and within those offices, if you have data centers, again, within those data centers, you would see putting a runner in data center, putting a runner in user segment, and so on, right? So this is how you can visualize how to implement a pen test platform.
Jeff, it seems a lot of work out there, but I guess I go by the Pareto rule, which you mentioned about. So I guess you do the bulk of your planning at the outset and work on those 80% which you need to work on. So thereby you can actually create your baseline. Once you create your baseline, you're also setting a benchmark for yourself, saying how many vulnerabilities are identified, what is the time taken to remediate, or how many have been remediated, or how many are yet to be remediated, how many can be remediated, of that how many cannot be remediated because there is a dependency. So I guess that is also something which the organizations would want to take into consideration when they are planning to implement such tools. Because the other thing you very rightly said, that you can implement runners, which means you're automating most of your activity, right? So thereby reducing the dependency of the people. So you can, I presume that can be scheduled as well. So it on the clock activates by itself and it checks for a new vulnerability. So that also means you're continuously monitoring your environment to discover new vulnerabilities. Now, you and I have been in the industry for several years, and what we have seen in most of our engagements is that there are hosts which have never been patched, right? So never, right? Because they believe in the principle, it's working, do not touch. And I'm sure you can visualize that cartoon, which where people go in front of the racks and say, "Keep working. We are going on leave." Right?
Yeah,
So
say
that's
a prayer.
one, right? And correct. So say a prayer, right? So yeah, prayers are answered, but not in all cases, right? Definitely not in this case, right? So it only takes a miracle for them to be saved from a disaster, right? Number two is that even if they patch, some of these devices will require a restart or a reboot. And many times, even that is not done. So even if the patches are applied, the vulnerabilities continue to remain. So that's an exposure, isn't it?
Correct.
So these are things which organizations will have to think through and look at the resources which they require. And two things which I also want to add to your list is in terms of setting the governance framework. Right? So there has to be an oversight to do this. There has to be a structure to review this periodically and look at the effectiveness of this exercise, the tool. And as in any other activities or in any other platforms or technology, you also need to continuously improvise, maybe upgrade, maybe change to a different technology, or maybe use new APIs to integrate. So all that also has to be continuously evaluated. And last but not the least is to stay up to date with emerging threats. Right. So while you do this, I guess organizations should also have a program to uncover or find the emerging threats. Right. And we talk about threat intelligence. How is your threat intelligence integrated to your environment? Because a lot of people think I get a feed from ABC vendor, it is integrated to my platform, I'm good. But I guess you and I know that it is just the starter, right? So you need to take that intel feed. You also need to generate your own threat intel feed using that feed to uncover what exactly is happening in your environment. If they don't do that correlation, then all these exercises would be futile. So, Jeff, before we wrap up the series, closing thoughts.
Sure. Thanks for summarizing that, Sujit. Like you said, in terms of patching, to have visibility into which servers are not rebooted, right? Even though you have like patching schedules and so on, but if people are not doing their part of the process, you need to be having the visibility into it, right? So this
Absolutely.
tooling will help you to get that visibility. So if people have not
Hmm.
rebooted and it's still showing as unremediated, you will get to know, right? So that is another advantage. And at the same time, you have to be ruthlessly prioritizing which vulnerabilities to fix, right? So based on the severity and exploitability that's being highlighted by the tool, you have to go for the quick wins, right? Quick wins not from an ease of implementation, but uh, the highest value for remediation, right? If it's internet facing, if it's highly exploitable, a patch is not available, and so on, you have to immediately look at it. So this tool will help you do that. And I would say awareness is the main value that you will get, right? At least you know where you're not doing good, and where you're doing good, you can amplify those best practices to the rest of the company. And having good metrics on that and monitoring and reporting back to the management teams will promote that culture of remediation within the enterprise, and that will help drive the security message forward.
Absolutely. Jeff, uh, you spoke about awareness, and I think along with awareness comes the visibility, right? So not only awareness and visibility, you become a self-aware organization. So whereby you can actually not only prioritize, you can also look at that low risks as well, and maybe have a team which would actually study that further to see whether that can actually escalate to a high or a critical risk. So with that thought, Jeff, I would like to thank you for taking time to share your wealth of experience. And I know that this 15 minutes is not enough to talk about all what you see and do day in, day out. I personally gained talking to you. There's so much which I was able to refresh, but also made a few notes which I can make use of it as part of my regular work. And I'm sure this 3-part series was an eye opener for a lot of our viewers. And I'm sure it was also refreshing to others who can take a few things and go back and implement in their organization so that they can stay ahead of the risk. Thank you so much, Jeff. And I look forward to seeing you in another edition and another topic very soon. Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity, Sujit.